Greetings, brothers and sisters. Bunch of things to get to. Alec Baldwin, a little more on Corey Feldman and Saturday Night Live. Maybe some other stuff. I don't know. Always possible that I've forgotten something. So let's start here with the Simpsons and in the Ukraine. Kiev. So the Simpsons at some point were in Kiev. I don't know when, but it was in the past.
No, we will go to Springfield, America, and...
They're going to go to Springfield, America, where they kidnap one Homer J. Simpson.
Death to America!
And he says, death to America. So, there's a longer clip there. I don't know. So that's interesting, right? Here he is in this association with Kiev and the death of America.
Death to America! Death to America! Death to America!
And so there's that. You know, it might be something. I mean, Simpsons has been on so long, of course they're going to predict things just by covering various elements. But there's a couple things to do with the Ukraine and the Simpsons. And, you know, the beginning of what we see now is very possibly going to lead to the end of America as we now know it. Speaking of ending America as we now know it, this is a little bit more of Corey Feldman's video. He's the comeback king. And there's a segment, you know, he's just schooling it up. And there's a segment here where he kind of raps.
Without the fuse lit, they offer you breaks to make you commit sin. They place a
commit sin. He's wearing his red blazer with his dancers.
Around your name to cause distraction. Listen.
Here he goes. He's going to do a little dance here.
We all have sadness and moments that we lost.
He's getting going. He's throwing it down here.
I was dropping the bomb without the fuse lit.
He was dropping the bomb without the fuse lit.
Coming to this world, we all have nothing. You break your back on the job just trying to fit in.
You know, he's always wanted to be like a Michael Jackson knockoff. But it's not just the singing, it's the dancing that's horrible. And the songwriting, the lyrics.
You see these people around, they're always smiling.
Crawling around the floor isn't dancing, right? And like, I don't know if he's had any vocal training, if he has the money for it, or any dance training, but it isn't evident in what he's doing, right? It's just like, you know, some toddler out there with the inability to self-perceive, but he really goes for it. Like he's not, you know, I mean, it doesn't seem to be any doubt in his system of his awesomeness, right?
Better make it sting, 'cause I'm the comeback king.
And so there's his, what he calls his mangel. There's this dude here that I think he considers his significant other. Although he has sort of a harem going there. At least he used to. I don't know. Hard times for Corey and the Angels. But this idea that he's the comeback king.
That comeback king. You know what I mean.
He says, I'm the comeback king. You know what I mean. And we don't know what you mean, Corey. Because you think about it, which I did yesterday. I thought about this whole, you know, the whole thing. But particularly about him saying he's the comeback king. Does that mean he was dethroned and now he's king again? Like, what does it mean? Like, well, how can you be a comeback king, right? So that means that he was once king and now he's coming back as king again. Like, it's, you know, there was the comeback kid, which was Bill Clinton. You know, he couldn't steal that. He's the comeback kid, but he hasn't really had a comeback before because he never really had a career. He's never been certainly as a music artist, he's been a joke, right? I mean, I'll go to one of his other performances in a second. But the guy has never been, you know, somebody who was relevant in the music industry. And, like, he's not in some major film. He's not a part of Hollywood movies after whatever, you know, display he put on there that destroyed his brand. And, I mean, deplatforming himself on his own platform that he built for himself was like a unique action. See, I'm in the editing process, and I thought I'd point this out. When you're doing a creative, whatever the creative work it is, a movie, a story. I mean, it doesn't have to be, even something like a video on social media and a joke, or in this case, a song. You have to have a premise. And the premise of this song is based in lies, because what he's saying here is that because of all these people who were, nasty to him, like all these, you see this with rappers a lot, all the haters, right? Somewhere along the line, Corey developed a slew of haters, and he exposed himself, and his brand, whatever was left of it, was pretty much decimated, which I covered in that other video yesterday, in terms of his, big reveal and his, trying to monetize not only his abuse story, but his now dead friend, Corey Haim, right? And whatever, fans he had left, I mean, he just took a, sledgehammer to his brand, right? And he's making this, this song that somehow all these haters took a shot at him, but now he's showing them with this song that he's still relevant. He's going to launch this comeback. But what he's, not being honest about was he was already in reality TV land. He did Celebrity Wife Swap. He did that other show with Aaron Carter, the Aaron Carter Milk for My Family, which I'll cover today on. I got a little Aaron Carter update on my other channel today or tomorrow. And so these videos go hand in hand. But he had already been in reality TV land. He was a joke, making B movies, and just, I covered all his, stuff he was doing. He always sucked as a singer and dancer. So he wasn't relevant. He wasn't, in the Hollywood club anymore. He had this weird harem thing with the Angels that he was acting as a manager, and he was, broadening his income streams away from counting on having an acting career. He had blown out with all these, Spielbergs and all these people that he was, once in the know with. He didn't, he was no longer relevant in Hollywood 10 years ago, and he was always just that creepy kid. He was never really a leading star, right? There was that, period of time where they had the two Coreys, right? But, it was really Corey Haim was the more likable one of the two, and he was always sort of the creep. And so it wasn't like the haters ended his career. Everything he did was self-inflicted, right? And so this song has no merit, because it isn't like he was some wonderful singer and artist and the haters took him down, right? Like, it's on display here. We didn't stop him. Years ago, we were, me and my, I was probably in my late teens or something, and my nephews were, aspiring basketball players, and my brother was a great basketball player, and we were playing, some sort of family game, and there was someone else on the other side of the court. But my nephews were kind of young, so it seemed like it was little kids. And there was some white dude there, and he was huffing and puffing, and, like he was dressed like he was wanting to play basketball, like, he had all the gear on. And he was like, wanting to play, but we were dominating half the court, and there was something going on the other side. And he was clearly, showing his displeasure that we were, finishing a basketball game, right? And that he wanted to participate in some way. And so, so we stopped playing, and my nephew said to my brother, hey, that guy really was, upset that we weren't, giving him a chance to play. And the guy sucked. We were watching him play, and he was shooting jump shots like from 10 feet away and like slamming into the backboard and missing the rim completely or missing all of it. And he was dribbling, like looking at the ball and bouncing like a 3-year-old kid. And my brother said, we didn't keep him out of the NBA. And so, and so that's Corey Feldman. Like, no hater has, got the power to prevent Corey's greatness from showing, which is the theme of this song, right? That, he's been kept down by all the, not just the haters here, but people in Hollywood who, for him doing his goofy exposés and his documentary, and now they sort of blackballed him. But he was already in reality TV land. He did multiple reality TV shows, and that's what happens at the end of your career when you're desperately trying to, get a little bit more cash out of your fame because, you know, no one else wants to hire you and, you know, you've already been played, right? You're already played out. And there's this moment here.
Come back.
Here he is wearing a crown. Here's the crown before that.
Know what I mean?
Boom, he's putting a crown on. He's got the comeback king. He's putting a crown on. He's dubbing himself King Corey Feldman. And here he is doing this.
You can never count me out.
Guy's putting a blanket on him or a robe. And then here's the end of the video. These guys are...
King, come back, king.
And there's his crown and his robe and his cross. I don't know. Is he a Christian now? Like, what's happened to Corey Feldman? Like, what, you know, what exactly was his primary malfunction?
Like a blank screen, you can never count me out.
Yes.
And then they do this close-up at the end, right? Where he's just schooling it up. So here's Corey, you know, during happier days where he was getting his angels going, his band.
One album to Michael Jackson and the other to Corey Haim, is that right?
Yeah, there's actually 4 dedications. One to my grandfather, one to Corey Haim, one to Michael Jackson. Majestic, who was also a friend of Michael's.
There's going to be some
Majestic. He had to do Majestic.
MJ moves coming here in a minute.
They're the so-called angels. They don't really play the instruments, sort of like Josie and the Pussycats.
Does it kind of come a
No
little
MJ
bit?
moves. No, yeah, it's kind of a similar style of dance because we grew up dancing together. So he was.
They grew up dancing together. Not that Michael was, you know, Michael Jackson. He was, you know, his little creepy stalking childhood star who, you know, always played a creepy kid in the movies he was in. No, they were together. Like, he kind of taught Michael some stuff, too.
He was my idol, obviously, and a lot of my influences.
Shall we get to
If
it?
you have that feeling it's about to go down in here, I also have it.
Really?
It's about to go down in here. You know what else is about to go down, Billy Bush? Your career. Because you had a conversation with Trump that is now sort of just been forgotten. But like, this is the best part where they're playing the piano, he's doing his dance. Look at him go. Spread your wings, Corey. Yes, do that. Do that. Oh yeah, go down. Wow, you got your break it down, Corey. Break it down.
Get it.
All she gonna do is twerk.
There you go. You make your way over to the microphone with in a snaky kind of evilly way.
The club, tell him.
Oh, look at him go. Look at him go. Break it down, Corey. He just goes for it. He just goes for it. He doesn't hold back. Go for it.
You feel beaten, don't have the strength needed to carry on.
So, you know, he's always been goofy.
Get in line, we hit the club. You see.
So that was Corey on the Today Show. Here he is with Howard Stern in 1992, where he had the audacity to ask the bold question, dancing and singing on a Freemasonic floor.
What's up with the youth? What's up with the youth?
What's up? What's up with the youth? What's up with the youth? Exactly. What is up with the youth, Corey? You can check this out for yourself. It's probably the most hilarious one. You always get copyrighted on Howard Stern stuff. But here he is breaking it down.
What's up with the youth? What's up with the youth?
Exactly. What's up with the youth? This is Howard Stern with some sort of bald cap on. And, you know, we all know about Howard. Here's Corey Feldman when he was, you know, popular.
A little dream with Jason Robards. It's called Something in Your Eyes. I'm going to do it right now.
Go, do it, Corey. You got to do it. There's Corey's #1 fan here.
Something's going on. I know it's something strong.
Now, this is back when Corey was in the military. You can see he has sergeant stripes here.
This you can't disguise.
It's always best with a clap with the microphone by holding the microphone.
Baby, you know that I can't bear
This is back when Corey had the hair working. So, you know, this is Corey Feldman.
Show them who is boss.
And I got some comments, which I always do, talking about Corey being, you know, a victim and how mean I was to,
You're a beautiful soul, but no one knows it's true.
you know, mock him in the ways that I do. And I'm going to cover that on my other channel. I'm going to do a comment video there. And I'm going to, you know, talk about his great pal and milk producer, Aaron Carter. So I'll do that on my other channel. These kind of videos will go hand in hand. First, one of my viewers sent this about Madonna. Madonna without Instagram filter. Singer 63 displays her taunt complexion, though not on her hands, as she steps out for dinner with son Rocco Richie. And this is what Madonna looks like without Instagram filters, right? And again, I don't care. You get old and, you know, whatever. I put on weight. You know, getting old. You don't look as, like, you don't look young when you're old, right? Like, that's just, it. You know, your body doesn't work as well either. Like, you feel different. I mean, you might emotionally be the same maturity level as you were when you were young, but physically you don't feel as good, right? I mean, that's just what happens to people. And, you know, people get old, they get old. There's nothing, you know, wrong with it. It's natural. But she's just schooling it up here because this is what she looks like in her Instagram posts, right? This is her. Oh, that's her dance, but see if we can get a picture here. There she is with all, not just Instagram filters. That's, you know, Photoshop. I mean, these are all these things she's doing, right? And she looks young, right? They've, you know, this is her manipulating her photos to look different than she is. And she knows what she looks like, and that's the most important thing, right? You know you're deceiving people. Like, that means you're saying what you look like now isn't okay, right? Saying that this isn't okay, that this is unacceptable. And, you know, ultimately this is her, like, ghoul hand here, right? Can't hide this stuff. I mean, you know, that's what her hand looks like. Lovable rebel is what it says there. There's another picture. That's what she looks like, right? She is, you know, gotten old, but this is what she wishes she looked like. And this is, you know, her manipulating her appearance, which so many people do. And that means that, you know, deep down, every time you look in the mirror, you're going to see some ghoul looking back at you. And you're going to be bummed because you're not accepting what, you know, the natural processes of aging. Like I've talked about this before. You know, you don't have to be, I mean, this is her old Illuminati photo from years ago. I don't know. She put on the crown there. There she is. This is her Baphomet outfit. I've, you know, covered this before. In older videos, she decided to revisit this. This is her Super Bowl performance. These guys wear these weird masks. But she wants to look like this, right? And this is not naturally how she looks, which is, you know, not just her problem, but America's problem. And for many women, this is why I call it Instaghoul. You know, because you're manipulating. I mean, Instaghoul features filters, which changes your appearance. And, you know what you look like. Like, you know that you're, deceiving, that you're not accepting yourself just on even a physical level. So what do you feel about yourself internally, right? What do you feel about what you have inside, which is, what's the only thing that's important is what you have inside, because your body's going to change. It just is. Your body's going to, go from being youthful to being old. And when that happens, you're going to look different and you're going to feel different physically. And I mean, it's just, what are you going to do with that, right? Like, this is, this is what happens to you, and you just accept it. And like, this is her with lots of plastic surgery, right? But you can't change that. You can't, plastic surgery that, so, I mean, at some place you just have to accept what's happened to her. What happens when she looks at her hand and other people do, right? You look at her hands and they go, oh, wow, that doesn't match the, the wrinkles on your hands don't match the skin that's been pulled tightly around your face, right? And it doesn't work. We know plastic surgery doesn't work, right? Like, it's not, you can get rid of wrinkles, but you don't look human anymore. And then with all the fillers and the lip stuff and the all this stuff, right? You cease to become, a real human being anymore. So speaking of fake boys, we have Alec P. Baldwin. And what do you notice about this? He has this one post about the Ukraine where he says, watch this please, and it's from CNN. But it's far from him commenting. Here he has a picture of Hilaria who's taking a break, and she appears to be naked holding a baby against her. And for some reason he wants everyone to, he says, love here. See his naked wife who's posing like, she just poses so much. Like everything that she does, she's a poser, as is he. But you look through these various Instagram posts, and there's no comment about Putin. And Alec used to comment about Putin, especially to do with Trump all the time. You have all these posts here, but none of these things have anything to do with what's good. This is back when he was in England. Remember when he used to mock Trump regularly on Saturday Night Live, and then he had these Instagram posts. This is when I started covering him, because he was so hypocritical, because everything he was criticizing Trump for was things he obviously possessed himself in terms of his character, in terms of who he was. But now he's doing things like this, right? These laying down posts, but he no longer is commenting politically because he's had his nuts clipped, right? By his wife, being outed as appropriating a culture, and for him, shooting somebody in the face and all the other stuff, right? And so now he's just, doing desperate. I mean, he's turned into hobo Alex, right? He's now like this hobo. Remember we saw these things when he was in England here. He came out looking like a hobo. They thought he was a hobo in England and arrested him, right? They were like, they thought he was some sort of vagrant. Looks like some golem-like creature came and put together a sentence. This is the real hobo. Like, he's just coming in. Look at him, right?
I'm in this little town.
It's like some guy went from rags to riches to rags, right?
Whenever I come to places like this, whenever I travel...
I remember when I was once a big A-list Hollywood star.
Away from home.
But, so they arrested him with these, like, ghoul eyes and stuff for being, looking like he was a hobo. It was Hobo Alec. But then we saw a distinct transformation over the past, I don't know, couple of years. Let's go back in time now to see a happier Alec, right? Here he is on January 25th in 2021 when he was still criticizing Trump, right? So this is him going in on Trump.
I view Trump as a dumb, blind, wounded animal.
Yeah, but Alec, like, you've kind of, that's what's... This is what has happened to him, right? Like, now he's been, like, broken, right? He's, his nuts have been clipped. He no longer posts stuff about Trump or anybody like this. He's no longer a political faketivist. He's just out there posting, weak little, sad little Instagram posts and desperately hoping to stay out of jail and maybe, scrape together something that, like, looks like the remnants of a career, right?
I view Trump as a dumb, blind creature.
Are you foreshadowing something here, Alec?
He's not smart enough to figure out anything. He's just kind of bullshit his way and bribed his way and lied his way through most of his life and got away with it. Got away with it.
He got away with it, right? Which is what every Hollywood actor does. It's all a bunch of, lies, right? So he's talking about the hope that was Joe Biden. This is before the election, right?
My last point, which is, with Biden, we return to a place where we have a chance.
We have a chance now. Biden's giving us a chance.
Global warming, we have a chance.
Global warming.
The pandemic, now we have a chance.
Do we have a chance, sir, Biden?
Now with Biden presumably coming to office, we have a chance to resolve this issue with the pandemic, where if Trump had stayed, we have no chance.
We have no chance. There wasn't this thing called Omicron, that's going to happen in the future. or just everything.
If Trump had remained in office, we had no chance of beating this in the next couple of years. This would have gone on and on and on and on. Let's separate the fact, which is hard to do, because with Trump, there's so much in that basket. There's so much to unpack that's bad. I mean, Trump really is, it's just incredible. He really is, hands down, he is the worst president in American history.
He's the worst. He's the worst.
The policies, the failed policies. It is the president's responsibility to address something like the pandemic. It is his responsibility.
And he just didn't do it.
Anybody sane is not saying that Trump is responsible for the pandemic. He's responsible for the administration's actions to address that, and he is a historic failure.
He's the biggest failure ever. He shot one of his co-workers. His wife is a fraud, and he's now just like a hobo.
But with Biden in office, we return to a place where we have a chance.
We have a chance now. Chance.
The pandemic, global warming, the economy, racism.
The economy? Did you just say the economy? Did you just say the economy?
Healing the country. Not everybody has to love each other and hug each other and kiss each other and eat each other's food.
Exactly. We don't have to eat each other's food.
And, white boys can have some soul food, and
white boys always need some soul food. White boys have to have their soul food.
Black folks are going to sit down and have some, truffle macaroni and cheese.
Is that what you think white folks eat? You think that white Americans all around the country are eating truffles and macaroni and cheese? They eat truffles and macaroni and cheese.
Whatever whitey white, Pepperidge Farm with some mayonnaise on it.
Wait. You have no clue what people are eating, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know what average folks are eating.
Whatever white man's food is.
I don't know. It's not like I'm white or something.
Pot roast with overcooked potatoes. I don't know. I'm being racist toward white people now. Sorry.
It's okay, Alec. You're going to go through some hard times pretty soon.
White people. We don't have to hang out with each other, eat with each other, cross over barriers in terms of culture, music, food, literature, whatever. We don't need to do that. We just need to leave everybody alone and let them live their lives. Not be putting nooses on the back of their cars, not be saying the N-word in public on film. I don't care. You see these Karens, screaming.
He sees Karens everywhere.
And they're screaming the N-word. With Biden, we have a chance to get back to normal.
Do we, though?
Which is you can think whatever you want to think.
Can I? Thanks, Alec.
I'm doing SNL tonight. I think. They called me, told me they want me to come, so.
Have a good time, Alex, while it lasts, because it's not going to.
It's Friday, October 30th.
2020.
Tomorrow's Halloween.
Yes, it is.
We're not going to have a Halloween because of the COVID, but holding them, having them near you, looking in their eye in real time, hearing their voice, doing all the things we normally do. That's been destroyed by Trump because of his mismanagement, because Trump is somebody who anything he's ever come across in his life, you read all these books about Trump and Mary Trump's book and so forth. You read all these books and these people are like, he's a guy who, anything that doesn't prop up his view, anything.
Sound like anybody we know, Alec?
That doesn't prop up his agenda to obtain what he wants, to attain what he wants, he just destroys, diminishes, ignores, sidesteps, ridicules, undermines.
Yeah. So, these are Alec's posts, right? Joe Biden election. He has this post, this post. Here he is doing a rant here. This stuff here. All these things 3 days before the election. There's that post and that post. And these posts, right? Every one of these things, he's talking about Trump.
And as we view the pandemic as an opportunity to realign a lot of things in our country, including our energy consumption and moving toward alternative energy as quickly as possible, go out of business because of the pandemic. You may also see banks die. Trump and the way he's just bungled and completely destroyed our society as the direct result of his mismanagement of the pandemic. 4 more years of him means 4 more years of that. It means 4 more years of that, of this indifference to medicine, indifference to science, this dismissiveness of facts. And
so we all know how Biden's turned out, right? And we all know how things have turned out for Alec, who was, you know, before he was bearded and he was, you know, shooting coworkers and things. It was just his wife's scandal. But this was his Instagram page, and he just, you know, was all political, and he talked about Putin all the time as well. I mean, in his earlier posts, and how Alec, there he is he's got pictures of Hilaria, and just, you know, one post after another, these rants he would go on. And it was, you know, better times for him where he was feeling himself and thinking he had a voice and he was some sort of political pundit. There he is. He was mocking Trump on a regular basis.
the Comey thing, the Comey rule, is that what it's called? I'm looking forward to seeing that. Very much. To see what he does, because obviously that's the drama, and they have a chance to let it breathe.
Let it breathe, Alec.
But I also think that no matter who plays Trump, how well they play it, no matter what the context, it doesn't matter. This person's Trump, this person says this, all of it. I think what also is true is that people are just sick of Trump.
Are they, Alec? Trump, 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 Trump. You're not sick of him.
They really don't care who portrays.
This is when he was leaving Saturday Night Live and he wasn't portraying Trump anymore. Anyways, Alec Baldwin's time as a political faktivist is over, right? Like, you know, I just scrolled through. I mean, I only covered him right before the election. And, you know, I started to see his Trump posts, and they were hilarious. I started making fun of him. And then his downfall just happened after that, right? And now he's just relegated to little goofy Instagram posts and nothing that's going to trigger a response from, you know, hoping that he's not going to trigger a response from all the people that are now, you know, disliking him. But nothing on Putin, nothing on Trump here, nothing on anything, right? Just, you know, hard times, guy looking like a hobo, MNFer, who's, you know, best days are long behind him. And so briefly, Saturday Night Live took a shot at Laura Ingraham. And again, Kate McKinnon just sucks at impressions. And this guy's playing Tucker Carlson.
Potter, I root for Voldemort.
Now, Laura, we got into a little bit of trouble for all the nice things we said about Russia and the mean things we said about Ukraine.
Right.
So, you know, he kind of has a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit like an impression of Tucker Carlson. But this doesn't sound like Laura Ingraham at all, right?
It sound pretty awful in hindsight and foresight.
Yeah.
And so, like, Kate McKinnon just thinks, like, being annoying is funny, right? That's her go-to move. And I dislike Laura Ingraham. Like, I just, you know, I'm not a Laura Ingraham fan. I mean, Tucker Carlson's a little bit of a kind of a truther, you know, Fox News kind of a truther. But Laura Ingram's, like, you know, hard to watch. But Kate McKinnon has nothing, you know, nothing in her impression. I mean, if you're going to make your bread and butter by doing impressions, then hire people who do impressions, right? Like real ones.
I kept asking, why do we hate Putin? Aren't liberals in America even worse?
Right, and I called the president
And so this is their, you know, non-funny open to the show.
of Ukraine pathetic. He stayed and fought with his people in the war, and I called him pathetic from a news desk in Washington.
Like, that's their big jokes here.
I kept saying we should be more worried about our own border getting invaded by Mexico. But in my defense, I am racist, so I thought that was true.
Okay, so this is Saturday Night Live, just, you know, a little bit of a taste here. So anyways, I turned on the news this morning, MSNBC, I think it was. and I'm not going to go try to find the clip, but there was, one of these MSNBC shills is on there, and he's talking, and he was talking about this guy from some country in Europe who was there greeting the new immigrants from the Ukraine, right? And he says, he's like, and he was wearing blue and yellow socks. He has these blue and yellow socks, and he said he put them on for the children. That when the children came in, they saw his blue and the Ukrainian children came in, and they saw his blue and yellow socks, and they would feel welcome. And and just you see this in the news. This is just one example of the not just the hypocrisy, but the fakeness of it, right? Because when America went and did whatever we did in terms of Arab Spring, and it happened particularly with Syria, but before that with Iraq and these other, wars that were, illegal and immoral, it set about a chain of Muslims coming in to Europe, and particularly France. And, this was already a problem for France when in 2005, right? So when I went to India in 2005, I flew through Paris. And I tell this story about how it's a heartfulness story about how I got on the plane and I went through security. Like it was one of those things where I was completely rushed because it was, we lived in 5 hours away from, I'm not sure where we were, probably about 3 hours away then. And I was flying out of DC. And whenever you go through what they call the Beltway, there's always these big loops around a city. There's a big, a circular highway, and it's maybe a few different highways they put together, but they call this one the Beltway, and it's this loops of road, and no matter where I came into the Beltway, no matter how I got, to where I was going, I was flying out of what I think is called Dulles Airport. Is it Dulles? I'm not sure, but it's whatever the airport was in D.C. And no matter which way I came in, it was always bumper to bumper traffic. No matter how early I came in, like we one time came in at 4 a.m, and there was still bumper to. I was like, how's there traffic now, right? And it's just that the road just can't handle the amount of cars. And so I drove to the airport, and it was always a sense of, running through the airport like OJ, because no matter how early we left, there was always, some sort of traffic delay. And so I got into the airport, and I'm hustling through the gates, the security now, heightened security because of the big event in 2001, right? And so I get on the plane, and I, get a window seat, and I had to go, I had to go to the bathroom, and there's a guy who sat next to me, and he was 300-400 pounds, huge, and he sat down and almost immediately fell asleep while we were taking off, and I was like, I'm not gonna wake this guy up and climb over him, right? So I had to go, I had to urinate the whole flight over to France from, whatever it was, going over the Atlantic Ocean is 5 hours or 7, whatever it is. So I had to go to the bathroom for a long time, the last, I don't know how many hours it was, right, on the flight. And we get off the plane, and we get into it's one of those, we disported onto the tarmac or whatever it's called, the parking lot area. And then we, walked over to a tram, and then we went to this room, and there was these guys with machine guns, right, French, military, and, way more security in France, even though this big event just happened in America. And they're screaming at these people, and there was all these Muslim-looking people that were, Middle Eastern-looking people, and they had kids. The kids were crying, and I don't speak the language, and there's just, it's like we're locked in some sort of detention center, and I thought, I'll get off in France, in Paris, and, I'll get a cup of, chai or tea or whatever they have there, get some sort of French pastry, right? I'd heard the French food was good, and I'll, regroup because I didn't have such a good flight coming in, and it was just chaos, the immigration process, right? And so, I ended up having to run to my flight because it was a connecting flight, and it took 2 hours to get through security. And then I just, I was going through these, these different hallways and trying to figure out where my flight was, and it was, and I was late, so I'm hustling. I had to run, like literally run, like OJ style, through the airport to get on the plane. And like I said, this is the part I usually emphasize, but the part I'm talking about here is that back in 2005, they had an immigration problem, and the French weren't cool with it, right? The end of the story was, so I get on the plane, and I'm sitting, like I was going to take an aisle seat, but the person said, oh, it's, the plane's only about a third full, right? So it's going from Paris to India. And so I'm like, all right, I'll just take a window seat again. And there's like all these empty rows of seats, and some guy comes in and he sits right next to me. And there's 3 seats. He sits, instead of sitting in the aisle seat, he sits in the one between. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's all these empty seats, but they did it for some, I don't know, balance of the plane. I don't know what it was. But the guy ended up saying, oh, you're going to see Master Chargy, because I had put a book in the, the area where they have like the barf bags. And he ended up being a practitioner of the heartfulness system, and, ended up being a good conversation I had with him. And the flight was great, and then it was his first time, and I helped him in. So that was like the heartfulness aspect. But the reason I'm telling this story is when I went through the Paris airport, and, there had been a so-called event in Washington, D.C. 4 years earlier in 2001, right? But, there was more security in Paris. Like, I didn't understand that. But then later I found out that there was all these immigrants that are pouring into Europe because America had destabilized the Middle East with these wars, right? Because all these countries, even Libya in terms of where its placement in Africa, all these countries that they invaded, the natural flow of people, refugees, has been to Europe. And so they didn't treat those refugees by wearing color flags of their, like this whole thing that they were saying about these Ukrainian people, because no country wants 1 million or even 100,000 refugees who have no money and they're just, desperate because they're leaving a war-torn country. Nobody wants them. They say it's like, immigrants, right? And it's an immediate crisis for you. Like, what do you do with these people? So they're making it sound like, everybody loves the Ukrainians, and, Putin is the worst guy ever. Like, that's why I showed you the Saturday Night Live clip, that everybody who's anybody who's ever said anything good about Putin is, as a complete horrible person, because Putin is, even though Putin's been a leader forever and has never had, a great reputation in terms of America, it's been the last so many years they've turned him into a demon or a devil, right? And that he has his reasons, and Russia has their reasons for invading the Ukraine, which I've said before. And I'm not saying they're right or wrong or whatever it might be, but the way the media's covering is so much deception. If you just turn on CNN and MSNBC and, Fox, even Fox, in the sense that, like, Tucker Carlson has had to walk back his comments because of the way that, Putin's being demonized. The same way they did it to Trump, and they did it to Saddam Hussein, and they did it to Gaddafi. They have these leaders they want to take out, and they just make up lies, and they don't give them a fair hearing of what their real positions are. And they just say these guys are like the devil and we got to take care of them. But we all know what America's done. Most of us have, in terms of these illegal wars. And so, it's just, this is the way it goes now. The same thing they do with people in the truth community or anybody they don't like. They just say, you're the problem, right? And it all comes down to, like, behaviors, which I'm going to get into when I do the Corey Feldman comment video, right? I always talk about this thing about behaviors. The behaviors are what, like, you're either against the behavior or you're not, right? But it's not okay when you do it just because you say the other people's your enemy. And that's what's being said here, right? When America invaded all these countries illegally and did regime change and grabbed resources and, all the reasons, the lies, the real reasons that we went into these wars, and then all the, fake reasons, the ones that the media gave, all the made-up stuff and, all the, the contrived events and things, and it's just so easy to see through now, and it's just so greasy. And that's the new media, because people have gotten like dumber and less aware, even though there's, you know, this truth movement, because even the truth movement's been compromised. And all of it is, you know, come down to where they're not even like trying to be smart, not address smart people or people who can use critical thinking skills. They're just 100% lying to you all the time in the most obvious ways. And nobody, you know, nobody can do anything about it because it's desperation time, right? Like this is, you know, what a collapsing economy and a changing paradigm does for people. Like the end of a yuga, this is what happens. And that's why I say, you know, the only way to navigate this is through connecting to God and having a different orientation. Instead of depending on a system and a government, you have to depend on God, because the system and the government are collapsing, right? But if you have an internalized relationship with God, you know, that's why I always bring up the heartfulness meditation, because it facilitates a deep contact with God. Then you have intuition and you can follow, you know, something other than what the, you know, the beast in the system is just, you know, just spewing out as a, you know, an act of desperation as it collapses right in front of us, right? Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramount, definitely important to the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.